Fired for saving a young boy, discover the incredible, life-changing act that followed. Jason's heart raced as he pulled into the driveway. It was just another long shift at the garage, another day spent fixing up rickety old cars for a corporate chain that saw him as a cog in the machine, nothing more. He was too exhausted to notice the soft breeze or the singing of the birds. The moment he stepped out of the car, though, everything shifted. In an instant, his son Tyler's life hung in the balance. In the distance, chaos erupted. A young boy named Sammy, no older than 7, had darted into the middle of a busy street, giggling, completely unaware of the danger. Diesel fumes mixed with screeching tires as a car came barreling down. Jason's instincts kicked in. He felt an electrifying rush course through his veins as he sprinted into the road, muscles straining, heart pounding. Time seemed to slow. He captured Sammy just as the car swerved, barely missing them both. Jason's heart climbed back down his throat as the ground felt solid beneath his feet again. Relief washed over him, but it was quickly eclipsed by disbelief as he learned that his employer had fired him for the incident. They cared more about their reputation than his actions. The hollow feeling in his chest grew. What would happen to Tyler? Rent was due, and the thought sent a wave of panic washing over him. As he sat in the kitchen, the weight of his unjust termination pressed down on his shoulders, dark clouds of worry spinning in his mind. The bills were already piling up. Tyler's laughter from the next room felt like a haunting reminder of everything he could lose. Suddenly, a knock at the door shattered his thoughts. Neighbors he barely knew rallied in droves, offering words of encouragement, stories of their own hardships. They shared their struggles, their faces lit with the fire of justice. Standing there, surrounded by support, Jason felt a flicker of hope ignite, yet the reality of his situation weighed heavily. The Hero in the Suburbs campaign began trending, each post filled with gratitude and admiration for his courage. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jason received an unexpected call that evening. His estranged father, a man he had no desire to converse with, wanted to talk. The air grew thick as they exchanged thoughts, each word pulling a thread in their complicated history. They spoke about sacrifice, about honor, and it dawned on Jason like a sunrise. Perhaps this moment was more than just about his job or money. It was about integrity, about fighting for what was right. Standing at a crossroads, emotions swirling within him, Jason felt the community's support bolster his resolve. He was far from perfect, yet here they were, offering help. The prospect of a job loomed over him like storm clouds, a tempting security that compromised who he wanted to be. With each passing day, the answer to whether he'd stand against corporate greed or bend to it loomed even larger. Would he choose the path of resilience, or succumb to the crushing weight of financial despair? The question echoed in his mind, and the neighborhood buzzed with anticipation, hearts aligned as the next chapter quivered on the brink of transformation. The next morning, Jason awoke to a golden sunrise peeking through the blinds. The light danced across the walls, illuminating the messy thoughts in his head. He took a deep breath, wishing for clarity. Tyler's laughter came from the living room, a sound bright enough to challenge the weight of Jason's worries. It pulled him into the moment, grounding him a little. "Dad! Come see what I made!" Tyler shouted, his voice bubbling with excitement. Jason couldn't resist. He padded down the hall, finding his son in front of a makeshift stand crafted out of cardboard and colored markers. Tyler's enthusiasm radiated as though he'd received a gold medal. "What is this, champ?" Jason asked, eyebrows raised. "It's a lemonade stand. I want to sell lemonade today." Tyler beamed, revealing a pitcher filled with bright yellow liquid sitting precariously on the table. Jason's heart swelled. That sounds amazing. Let us do it together. As they worked side by side, Jason felt a spark of motivation igniting within. The stand wasn't just lemonade, it was a way to take charge, a way to fight back against the unknown that loomed overhead. They filled cups, decorated the stand, and before long, they were out on the curb, signs hastily drawn with swirls and exaggerated letters. Neighbors began to gather, drawn in by the sight of two eager faces. The community's response was electric. People bought cups of lemonade and stayed to chat. Each interaction radiated warmth, wrapping around Jason like a blanket. They talked about the firestorm surrounding him, the injustice of being fired. Each story of support both soothed and motivated him. People are backing you, one neighbor said, wiping lemonade from her chin. You've become a voice for all of us. We're proud of you. Jason smiled, grateful but still unsure. Could he really be a symbol for change? The thought made his head spin. Amidst the laughter and orange light, a flicker of determination emerged. Hours passed, and as the sun began to set, the pitcher was nearly empty. Tyler jumped and clapped his hands, ready to celebrate. We did it, Dad. Feeling the warmth of their success, Jason ruffled his son's hair. You're right, buddy. We sure did. But it's more than just lemonade. We're building something together. Just as they started to pack up, Jason's phone buzzed. It was a message from an old friend, a journalist interested in covering his story. He had to do it. This was his chance to fight. The weight of his decision pressed down on him like the dusk settling around them. What do you think? Jason asked Tyler, holding up the phone. Should we tell our story? I want the world to know how awesome you are, Dad. Tyler exclaimed, his eyes bright with pride. In that moment, Jason grinned. It wasn't about being fired, it was about standing tall for what was right. As they headed inside, Jason's phone vibrated again. An unknown number. When he opened the message, his breath caught in his throat. It was an opportunity, a job offer from a nonprofit aimed at advocating for workers' rights. This was more than he could have hoped for, yet it also came with stakes higher than he'd ever imagined. His heart raced as he pondered the choice ahead. Should he let go of all the fears and take a leap into the unknown, or retreat back to safety? The weight of the decision loomed like dark clouds fraught with rain, threatening to burst. Jason was on the brink, one step away from a future he never dared think possible. What if he took that leap? Would it lead to his own redemption? As he stood at the threshold of possibility, Jason wondered about the price of bravery. But in the silence, amidst the fading light, one truth shone brightly: he was ready to fight for a chance, not just for himself, but for Tyler and everyone counting on him. What would he choose in this moment of truth? Jason set his phone down gently on the table, his mind racing. The thought of stepping into the nonprofit world filled him with both excitement and anxiety. Could he really make a difference? He glanced at Tyler, who was busy pumping his little fists in the air, oblivious to the storm of thoughts swirling in his dad's head. Do you really think I could do it, Ty? Jason asked, his voice catching just a little. Be a voice for others? Absolutely. Tyler shouted, spinning around in a little circle. You're already the best, Dad. You can be the best voice too. Jason felt warmth spread in his chest. His son believed in him. But that trust also weighed on him. He needed to prove Tyler right, to show him that standing up for what is right wasn't just about words, it was about actions and the risks they entailed. The next day, Jason woke up with the dawn breaking through his window. He had tossed and turned all night, replaying the conversation with Tyler and the job offer buzzing in his thoughts like a relentless bee. It was time to make a decision. He pulled on his shoes, determination taking root like a seed inside him. As he walked to his desk, a stack of printer paper caught his eye, blank canvases waiting for his mark. He began to scribble, pouring every ounce of raw emotion onto the pages. The injustice of being fired, the hope sparked by the lemonade stand, and the love for his son. Each note fueled his fire. He wasn't just going to accept the role, he would mold it into something beautiful, something that resonated with so many others. After a couple of hours, Jason stepped back to look at what he had created, a makeshift agenda for a community meeting he would host. He wanted to gather support, share his story, and, if possible, turn this personal fight into a collective push for change. His heart raced at the thought. He imagined a room full of faces familiar and new. "Dad! Can I help?" Tyler barged in, hands on his hips, filled with the eagerness of a little entrepreneur. "Yes. Grab some markers, buddy. We need posters." Jason grinned. The two of them dove into the task, their laughter mingling with the fading morning light. Tyler drew colorful letters while Jason sketched out plans. In that moment, they were inseparable, bonded by hope and purpose. The lines between father and son blurred, both pushing each other toward something greater. As the day turned to evening, they felt the energy shift. When the posters were finished, a sense of community began to swell within their small apartment. Jason's hands shook with excitement and fear when he wrote down the date and time for the meeting. It felt real, tangible, a beacon guiding them both, but as the sun dipped below the horizon, Jason's phone buzzed with another message, and this time, it came with a name. A fellow employee from his old job reached out, sharing rumors of the backlash against him, but offering help after hearing his story. Jason felt a knot form in his stomach. Was this what they were really saying? That he wasn't alone in this fight? The strength in numbers theory echoed loudly in his mind. He took a deep breath, realizing if he accepted the position, there could be more than just his own pain to consider. When Tyler walked up and gently touched Jason's arm, Jason looked down and saw unwavering belief sparkling in his son's eyes. It was the push he needed. He knew the next step wouldn't just impact him or his boy, it might ignite hope for others too. In that moment, Jason understood the enormity of the choice lay not just in the job itself, but in the trust the community placed in him to stand for what was right. "Let us do this," he whispered, vision set on the horizon. Yet, as they stood there in the fading twilight, Jason couldn't shake the thought, what would it truly mean to be the face of change? The unknown loomed ahead, and he felt its pressure build inside him. With a going forward energy humming through his veins, he wondered, ready or not, how would he center his life around more than just survival? What awaited him in this unfamiliar territory? The morning of the community meeting dawned bright and hopeful, yet Jason felt a tightness in his chest as he glanced at the clock. He had barely slept, running over his plans in his mind like a rusty wheel in need of oil. Tyler was up early, bouncing around in excitement, his energy bringing a smile to Jason's tired face. "Are you nervous, Dad?" Tyler asked, sitting cross-legged on the floor with a pile of bright markers in front of him. "A little," Jason admitted, attempting to sound brave. "But it'll be okay. I just want to help as many people as possible. That's the best part." Tyler grinned, flicking a marker into the air. "You're gonna be awesome." The innocence and faith in his son's voice lit a tiny spark inside him. He had raced against fear in the last few weeks, and now, facing this stage felt like running into the arms of all that he had built: his relationship with Tyler, his vision for the future, the connections he could forge in this community with a shared purpose. As they made their way to the community center, Jason felt a mix of uncertainty and determination. The brightly painted building stood proud against the clear blue sky, but instead of excitement, a nagging doubt settled in his stomach. What if no one showed up? What if they didn't care about his story? What if he fell flat? The doors opened, and inside, people began to trickle in: neighbors, old friends, even a few strangers drawn by the promise of change. Their faces were a medley of expressions: curiosity, skepticism, hope. Jason took a deep breath, feeling Tyler's small hand slip into his. The moment Jason took the stage, all eyes were on him. Flashes of memories from his past life flickered like distant fireworks: a busy office, the laughter of colleagues, moments of triumph and heartbreak. But today, he was here for something greater. He gripped the microphone tightly. "Thank you all for coming," he said, his voice steady but filled with an undercurrent of emotion. "You probably know me as the guy who lost his job for trying to help a kid. But what I want to share today isn't just about that moment. It's about all of us. It's about standing together and sharing a voice." He shared his story, the ups and downs, the precarious balance of doing what was right versus what was safe. As he spoke, he saw heads nodding and expressions softening. The tension in his chest began to release, and with each word, he felt more of himself come alive. When he finished, the room was electric with silence for just a heartbeat before sound crashed back in applause. Tyler jumped up and down, his cheers echoing through the room. Jason's heart soared. This wasn't just about him anymore. People started sharing their stories too. One woman spoke of her struggle with unfair treatment at work. Another man recounted how he'd hesitated to speak up against injustice. Each narrative wove together a tapestry of shared experiences, fears, and hopes. They were voices that could now be elevated, united by Jason's call to action, but then, just as momentum built, an unfamiliar voice chimed from the back of the room. "What happens when the backlash comes?" A worried older gentleman asked, his brow furrowed deeply. "What if they come for you again?" The room quieted, and Jason felt his stomach drop. Had he considered this enough? Were they all ready for the fight ahead, or was he leading them toward inevitable disappointment? As he searched for the right words, a rush of determination surged through him once again. "If we stand together, we can face anything," he replied, the conviction evident in his tone. "I'm not here just to be a voice, I'm here to help build a community that lifts each other up." But the question lingered in the air, and Jason couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The unknown stretched out before him, filled with challenges he hadn't yet encountered. What consequences would unfold now that he had stirred the pot? What would it mean for him and Tyler as they ventured deeper into activism, ready or not? As he looked out into the faces of the crowd, a part of him felt both terrified and exhilarated. The only thing certain was that this path he had chosen would be filled with unexpected turns, and he needed to be ready to confront whatever lay ahead. Jason stepped off the stage, his heart still racing from adrenaline and emotion. The applause faded, but the energy in the room held fast. Tyler rushed up to him, beaming like a sun. "You were amazing, Dad!" he exclaimed, his eyes sparkling. "They're totally gonna help us." "Thanks, buddy," Jason said, ruffling Tyler's hair. He forced a smile, but doubt still lingered. What if the excitement faded? What if fear of backlash held them back? As the crowd started to mingle, the buzz of conversation wove through the room. He could see small groups forming, some deep in discussion, while others exchanged phone numbers and smiles. It was the beginning of something vibrant, yet a nagging voice in his mind whispered worries of challenges to come. "Can you talk to me?" The older gentleman from before approached, a heavy seriousness etched across his face. "I'm Bill. I get what you're trying to do. But I've lost my job for speaking up before. It's not easy." Jason's heart sank. "I understand, Bill. It's scary to step out there." "It is," Bill continued, looking around the room. "But I see hope here. I just want to make sure we're prepared for the storm." Jason nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders again. "You're right," he said. "It's a risk, but the way I see it, we can't shy away from that fear. We have to bring it out in the open." Bill glanced thoughtfully at the floor before meeting Jason's gaze. "What's the plan if they do come for you? Have you thought about how to protect yourself?" Jason took a deep breath. Protecting himself meant more than just shielding against backlash. It meant ensuring that the bond he was strengthening with the community wouldn't just crumble with the first sign of trouble. "If they come after me, I'll need all of you behind me," he replied, feeling a tremor of resolve. "Then we'll stand together," Bill said, extending his hand. Jason clasped it firmly, anchoring the promise in that moment. The mingling continued, energized voices rising in the room. Jason drifted away, feeling pulled toward the spirited discussions. Conversations rippled around him about a new bake sale to fund community efforts, a rally to draw attention to unjust practices, and a workshop aimed at teaching people how to stand up in the face of adversity. But as the minutes passed, a new voice rose above the others, this one filled with agitation. "Don't you all see? You're risking everything." It was a sharp voice, cutting through the warmth of excitement. A middle-aged woman stood near the refreshment table, shaking her head. "These things can have serious consequences." Jason felt a knot form in his stomach. Was she right? Could their hopes turn into a nightmare swiftly? He stepped closer to her, wanting to diffuse the tension. "What do you mean?" "People lose their livelihoods, their families. The risks are real, Jason." She eyed him with a mixture of fear and disbelief. "I know," he replied, his heart racing again. "But if we don't stand up, who will? Together, we can handle whatever comes our way." Silence enveloped them. The room around them hushed, eyes turning to Jason and the woman. He could sense the balance shifting. Would they be ignited by hope, or would fear take root again? As he searched for the right words to reassure everyone, he realized how fragile their newfound unity felt. This was more than just a community meeting, it was the beginning of a movement, and it could easily falter at the first sign of danger. "Let us stay informed, stay united. We can prepare for any backlash. I won't fight this battle alone," he insisted, and hope flickered back into those eyes surrounding him. But as he scanned the room once more, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were still teetering on the edge of uncertainty. What would they have to face next? Would this meeting transform into something powerful, or would it crumble before it had a chance to begin? His mouth dry, Jason steeled himself, ready for whatever lay ahead. As the room buzzed with renewed energy, he could sense the weight of anticipation, the dawning realization that the journey was only just beginning. Jason looked around the room, his pulse quickening as he caught snippets of conversation. Laughter and enthusiasm mixed with uncertainty and unease. He could see strains of anxiety etched on faces. The woman who had spoken out earlier stood off to the side, her arms crossed tight against her chest, her expression a blend of skepticism and fear. "Hey, everyone!" Jason called out, raising his voice above the chatter. The crowd grew quiet, faces turning expectantly toward him. "I get it. We're all scared. But what if fear is the very thing that holds us back from achieving something great?" A light murmur in agreement rippled through the group, though some still looked unconvinced. Tyler clutched tightly around Jason's leg, seemingly anticipating his father's next words. That small act of support anchored Jason, giving him the courage to press on. "What we're starting here is about more than just us. It's about our kids, our community. We can build a future where people don't have to hide who they are or what they believe. But it's gonna take all of us." A hand shot up from the crowd. It was another familiar face, a single mom named Sarah. "But what if they try to silence us? What if they turn on the people who stand with you?" The question hung in the air, heavy and unyielding. Jason felt a wave of apprehension wash over him but forced a reassuring smile. "If they do, we'll stand together. We will not let fear divide us. That's how we make a difference together." Powerful things can happen when a group of passionate people unite for a common cause. Jason's words seemed to ignite a small flame in the room. He could see glimmers of hope and even some nods of understanding beginning to wash over the crowd. But as he glanced back at that woman, her eyes were still darkened with doubt. "Look," he continued, addressing her directly. "I know you're worried about the risks. I've felt that way too. But we're not weak. We can't let fear rob us of our strength. And if it means taking a hit for something we believe in, isn't that a fight worth having?" His voice grew stronger with each utterance, the passion pouring from him like a dam breaking. Just then, as if punctuating his words, the doors swung open, and a couple of men in suits stepped inside, their presence shifting the atmosphere instantly. Jason's heart sank as he recognized the intimidating figure of a local businessman who had often sought to silence dissent. The crowd stiffened, whispering and shifting uneasily as the men strode toward Jason. He felt Tyler tighten his grip, uncertainty swirling in the young boy's eyes. Jason's chest tightened too, but he willed himself to stand firm. The businessman took a step forward. "Jason, you and your little gathering here, do you really think you can make a change? You're treading on dangerous grounds." The room fell even quieter. Every eye was on Jason, the earlier excitement now battling against a fresh wave of intimidation. Jason took a deep breath, feeling the weight of everyone's gaze on him. He was standing not just for himself but for each person in that room. "We're trying to do something good here. Change is never easy. And what if you lose everything?" The businessman pressed, a smirk briefly appearing on his lips. The question hung thick in the air, heavier than before. Could they really push back against the tide? "Sometimes," Jason said, his voice steady but fierce, "you have to risk everything to stand for what's right." A flicker of defiance sparked in the room, people exchanged determined looks, then nods of agreement. "Right in front of your son, no less," the businessman sneered, turning to highlight Tyler. Jason felt rage surge through him, but he tempered it quickly. Could anger be transformed into strength? Could they really band together to face what was ahead? As the businessman continued to speak, Jason remained resolute. The battle was just starting, and his heart raced as he realized that this moment could define their journey. But with the stakes soaring, he wondered, how deep would they have to dig to stand united and true? What challenge awaited them next, and would they find the courage to face it together? The businessman's presence loomed large, casting a shadow over the room as he unleashed his verbal jabs with calculated malice. Jason's heart thumped loudly in his chest. Tyler's small hand clung tightly to his leg, grounding him in that sea of uncertainty. "What's happening here?" The businessman sneered. "A revolution? You really think you can stand against me? This community doesn't want change, they want comfort, stability." The skeptics shifted uncomfortably, glancing around the room as if they were weighing their options. Jason felt a swell of heat rise within him. Comfort? What's comfortable about silence? About watching people suffer because they're afraid to speak up? A murmur ran through the crowd, but the businessman wasn't finished. "You put your son in danger, Jason. If you want to fight this battle, you better be prepared to handle the consequences." "Consequences?" Jason echoed, fury igniting his voice. "What kind of future are we perpetuating if we allow fear to dictate our actions? If everything was based on consequences, we'd be living in chains." Tyler's grip on Jason tightened further, his little frame shaking. Jason looked down to reassure him, angling his body slightly in between his son and the looming threat. "I'm not going anywhere, bud," he whispered, clenching his jaw. "Jason, you're being reckless," Sarah's voice broke through, her wide eyes darting between him and the businessman. "What if it backfires?" The tension hung like a taut string over the room. Jason inhaled deeply, feeling the fight in him shift. "What if it does? What if we risk it all, but what we gain in return is a place where Tyler and all our children can be free?" "But it could cost you your job," another voice chimed in, fraught with apprehension. Jason met their eyes, a mix of determination and raw vulnerability in his own. "Look, we might face losses, but standing up for what's right together will mean so much more than a paycheck or a title. In the end, aren't memories with our kids worth fighting for?" A spark grew within the crowd. Their worries transformed slowly, taken over by a collective pulse of unity. He could see it, a flicker of belief igniting as they connected around a shared dream. "Jason," the businessman interjected, impatience bubbling beneath his surface, "this is not a game. You would be surprised how quickly I can make you lose everything." "And maybe," Jason shot back, "that's the very thing we need to fear the most, losing our voices." A woman near the back took a tentative step forward, emboldened. "I don't want to be scared anymore," she called, her voice rising. I want to speak out for my kids. Others began to nod. Like dominoes, their resolve built upon one another. Jason felt a wave of support wash over him, filling him with renewed strength. Yes. He shouted, we will not be silenced. The businessman's arrogance seemed to falter, the tide turning beneath him. But he wasted no time, his expression hardened. You'll regret this, he warned, glowering at Jason. This is your last chance to back down. The crowd spilled forth with murmurs of defiance, emboldened by a new sense of agency. Jason felt a fire igniting, not just within himself but across the room. This could be the beginning of something huge, the sort of change that had long been overdue. As the businessman turned away, his men trailing behind him, a realization sunk deep within Jason. They were on the brink of a shift, a change that would require grit, unity, and sacrifice. But just as the doors swung closed, a series of small tremors rippled through the crowd. What happens now? Someone asked, their voice carrying the unspoken fears back into the light. Jason stood silent for a moment, heart racing, hoping they could weather whatever storm lay ahead. Now he began, voice rising, now we take the first step together. And just as hope began to solidify, a phone buzzed loudly in the back of the room. A harsh reminder of the outside world. A message that could change everything. Guys, look, someone gasped, snapping Jason out of his fervor. What would the message reveal? Would it forge their future or pull them back into the shadows? The crowd hushed, a palpable tension hanging in the air. Jason glanced anxiously toward the back of the room, where the phone's insistent buzzing had captured everyone's attention. He felt Tyler's fingers tighten on his leg, a silent plea for reassurance. Show us. Someone urged, their voice a mix of curiosity and worry. With a hesitant hand, the woman stepped forward, phone raised as she swiped to reveal the message. Her face paled as she read it aloud. There's been a police report against Jason for instigating a public disturbance. Gasps echoed through the hall, a wave of disbelief washing over their previously emboldened spirits. Jason's stomach dropped. The businessman's threat had been no idle jab, it was a reality crafted from fear. What? That can't be right. Sarah exclaimed. He didn't do anything wrong. I was just speaking out for our future, Jason said, trying to find a shred of defiance within himself. This is what they do. They try to silence us. But if the police are involved, Tyler whispered, his youthful innocence painfully evident, does that mean you'll get in trouble? Jason knelt down to his son's level, his heart aching. Listen, buddy, sometimes standing up means facing hard consequences. But I'm not going to let them take our voices. The crowd felt fragmented. Some murmured amongst themselves, fear creeping back into their expressions. Others, however, were ignited by Jason's resolve. One man, a retired firefighter, stepped forward. I have your back, Jason. We all do. We can still fight this. His words sparked a quiet upheaval. Jason felt the pulse of unity ripple through the room again, transforming fear into determination. We won't be intimidated. We'll make our voices louder. But as hope crested, another phone buzzed, drawing attention again like a magnet. A different voice broke the conversation. Guys, look. Someone shouted, excitement breaking through the tension. There's a post going viral about everything that happened here. Jason turned to see the screen illuminating their surroundings, a flurry of tweets and shares. Pictures of him speaking out against the businessman were spreading like wildfire, igniting conversations in living rooms across the community. Comments flooded in support, solidarity, outrage. Wow, people are really getting behind this. Someone exclaimed, the energy in the room surged, elevating their hope. This is our moment. Another voice cried out. Jason felt his heart swell. Here it was the potential for something bigger. The tide of change was swelling, propelled forward by the power of social media. Yet, a nagging doubt tugged at him. What if the backlash was sharper than any of them anticipated? Will it be enough though? Jason asked aloud, his voice quieter now. What happens when the businessman retaliates? There will always be fear, the old firefighter said, his gaze fierce. But fear has power only if we allow it to control us. As those words settled in, a sense of clarity brushed against Jason's heart. The road ahead was uncertain, riddled with obstacles, but it was also wrapped in the newfound voices of the community eager for change. They weren't alone anymore. Suddenly, Tyler tugged at his father's shirt, and Jason turned, kneeling once more. Dad, what are we going to do next? Will we be okay? Jason looked into his son's eyes, innocence, vulnerability, and trust. We fight, Bud. Together. We take every step as a family, as a community. We show them that we can't be silenced. But a shadow loomed once more as the door creaked open again, and a sharp silhouette stepped back into the room. The businessman had returned, a sinister smile curling his lips. Did I hear you talking about fighting? Good luck with that, he said, each word wrapped in menace. You'll need it. Jason's heart raced, a question firing through his mind: what would it take to finally turn the tide? The stakes were rising, and their fight had only just begun. The tension crackled in the air as the businessman stepped further into the room, a predator surveying his prey. Jason felt a chill run down his spine as uncertainty washed over him. He stood taller, forcing his feet into the solid ground beneath him. We're not afraid of you, he declared, his voice stronger than he felt inside. The crowd stirred, murmurs of agreement flaring up like sparks in dry grass. The businessman's smile faltered for a moment, revealing a glimpse of the fury beneath. You really think that? You're all standing on shaky ground. One way or another, I will make you regret this. Sarah stepped forward, her fire igniting alongside Jason's. We won't back down. You underestimating us is your biggest mistake. Her courage fanned the flames of the room. People began shouting words of solidarity, their voices as one against the looming threat. The businessman glanced around, his confident facade cracking under the pressure. Viral videos and social media posts won't save you when the police arrive, he sneered, feigning indifference. What do you think will happen when they start digging? It won't matter how loud you shout. Fear flooded Jason's chest again. He knew the weight of an indictment. But as he looked at the faces around him, determined, fierce, unbroken, he felt a new resolve begin to take root. You think you can silence us, but you're wrong, he said, glancing at Tyler, who watched wide-eyed. Fear might be a weapon for you, but we're armed with truth. Silence gripped the room as everyone absorbed his words. The businessman took a step back, confusion mixed with anger shining in his eyes. Truth? You think your little rebellion can change anything? I own this town. I run it. But before he could finish, the door swung open again. In walked a familiar figure, the local news reporter, her expression one of determination. I heard what was happening, she announced, a camera crew trailing behind her. All of you have a story that needs to be told. Excitement buzzed through the crowd. Jason felt the shift, the power of their truth was starting to be recognized. We've got to tell them everything, he said urgently. About the destruction of our community, our fears, the lengths we'll go to protect our future. The reporter held out her microphone. Let us hear it. This is your time. Speak. Jason noticed Tyler, his son's small, fragile hands clenched into fists of determination. He approached the microphone, feeling the weight of countless eyes on him. We are parents, children, friends. We're a community. We need our future to be safe, to grow without fear. The businessman thinks he can control us, but that's not who we are. We will not live in silence. Cheers erupted, voices intertwining into a chorus of courage. But the businessman swept back, panic rising in his eyes. You think this will help? He barked. This will only bring you more harm. But Jason held firm. No more harm, he shouted, and for the first time, fear fell away. He knew they could face whatever came next together. Yet deep down, uncertainty gnawed at him. What if this battle was only beginning? The businessman was powerful. Would the police show up now? What dark retaliation could he unleash? As words of unity filled the room, Jason's heart raced with hope but also dread. The community was standing tall, but he couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was still to come. Together, we aren't just a voice, he thought, glancing at Tyler who now beamed with pride. We're a movement. But how would they cope when the real fight began? The door slammed shut behind them, a dark promise echoing in his mind. Would they prevail against the storm ahead? The scene shifted, the room filled with determination, and the story was just beginning to unfold. Jason stood before the gathered crowd, his heart pounding, the air thick with mixed feelings of hope and fear. He looked around at the faces drawn close together, fueled by the fire of change they all believed in. He felt the warmth of Tyler's small hand in his, a grounding reminder of why he fought. Today, standing here, I'm not just fighting to reclaim my job, Jason began, his voice steady despite the myriad of emotions flooding him. I'm fighting for us. For our families, our children, our future. His words carried in waves, echoing off the walls, and he could feel energy mounting, igniting spirits all around. In that moment, something shifted. Eyes that had once been shadowed with doubt brightened. Neighbors who had fought silent battles began to find their courage. Someone cheered a simple, unassuming voice, but it spread like wildfire among the crowd. "We've got your back, Jason." Another shouted. He brightened, feeling a surge of hope. "This fight isn't just mine, it's ours. We stand together against injustice. It's time we let our voices be heard." Just then, 2 police officers entered the room. The crowd tensed, a wave of whispers snaking between neighbors. Jason swallowed hard, preparing for the worst. They marched toward him, and the businessman's earlier threat echoed loudly in his mind. But as the officers approached, one raised a hand. "Hold on. We've come to listen. We've received an unusual number of calls about a gathering here." Jason erupted with a spark of clarity, his mind racing. "We're here to talk about workers' rights, about being treated with dignity and respect. Our community is suffering." The second officer nodded slowly, as though considering the weight of their message. "We need to hear your side, Jason." "All sides, actually." Jason felt the breath he had been holding release. Could this be the inflection point they so desperately needed? "We're trying to unite together," he said, speaking with conviction. "We won't allow intimidation to silence us any longer." "Take your time," the first officer replied, a sincerity in his voice that felt rare. "The more we understand, the more we can help." Tyler's grip on Jason's hand tightened, and he looked up with wide eyes full of admiration. Jason knelt down once more, feeling imbued with a sense of responsibility. "See, kiddo. This is how change happens. People come together, hearts open, ready to listen." Feeling his son's hope seeping into him, Jason stood taller, steeling his resolve. The crowd became a tidal wave, pulling one another into a rhythm of their shared cause. Voices rose around him, stories woven together, each thread representing someone touched by the uncertainty of corporate greed and fear. They spoke of experiences that had become too common, unjust firings, workplaces that turned a blind eye, families struggling to make ends meet. Each mention felt like a nail driving into their opponent, each story was a spark setting the air alive. The reporters captured the moment, their cameras flashing, documenting this crucial call for change. "Fear will not define us," Jason shouted, and the room erupted in agreement. Tyler beamed, cheering alongside the thrumming energy. Soon the police officers exchanged glances, nodding knowingly. "Let us see what we can do," one said, stepping forward. "But we need everyone here to keep sharing these stories. Document them." Jason felt warmth spreading in his chest. This is just the start of our fight. Together, we can create a system that holds businesses accountable. Together, we can reclaim our dignity. As the room filled with renewed determination, Jason realized that he wasn't simply fighting for his job or his rights, he was standing for every single person in that room, bound together by a shared purpose. Days turned into weeks, and with each meeting, stories spread far and wide. Their message reverberated throughout the community, gaining attention beyond their neighborhood. Allies emerged, former businesses, local organizations, even schools wanting to join forces. Jason was invited to speak at rallies, interviews followed. Articles covering their movement filled local papers. The once quiet murmur of change blossomed into a roar, and with each shout, Jason felt the chains of fear shatter all around him. Yet amid the momentum, Jason never lost sight of the quiet moments with Tyler. When the day turned into night, they would sit watching the fading sun, exchanging ideas about what the future held. "Dad," Tyler would muse, "can we make sure everyone sees it?" "Yes, buddy," Jason replied, heart swelling with pride. "We'll shine a light on this, just like a lemonade stand bringing people together." And so they did. Together, they created spaces for others to share their truths, paving the way for new conversations, gatherings that smelled of hope. In an unexpected twist, Jason was offered not just a position at the nonprofit he had dreamed of, but a new path brimming with opportunity, one that aligned with his values. Just as the community rose together in the face of adversity, Jason realized that this wasn't just his fight, it was a bridge to a future where children like Tyler could grow up in a world where justice and compassion thrived. On the last day of summer, under skies painted with brilliant hues, Jason stood at a podium surrounded by his community, Tyler at his side. He felt the rush of passion rise within him again, ready to share the final message: "Today, we stand united, ready to face whatever comes next." And as the crowd cheered, lungs full of hope and power, Jason knew they had only just begun to change the world for the better. Your moment to transform is now. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show that you stand with us. Comment your reactions and feelings about this inspiring ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. This is the moment to show your support, so don't wait not even one more second.